Spider-Man Brand New Day is roughly 1 month away, and we still haven't actually seen who the real villain of this movie is. You might say Jean Grey, you might say Venom, you could even say Hulk, or maybe you think it's one of the street-level guys, Scorpion, Boomerang, Tarantula, but none of them are the answer. And to understand why, we first need to talk about just how crowded this movie is with characters. Think back for a second. Spider-Man 3 and The Amazing Spider-Man 2 were both torn apart years ago for the exact same reason. They got messy because they crammed in way too many villains, and the whole story collapsed under the weight. So out of the 8 characters everyone keeps naming for Brand New Day, are all of them actually important? Of course not. Characters like Boomerang and Tarantula are almost certainly going to show up in the montage, the sequence that shows how Spider-Man became New York's hero, in the years between No Way Home and Brand New Day. That's a detail that lines up with the short synopsis Sony put out. Scorpion, based on what we can piece together from the actor's own posts, looks like a major player tied to the symbiote. Jean Grey is there to mark the X-Men finally stepping into the MCU. And Hulk and Punisher are supporting characters, standing next to Peter, not against him. But here's the problem. There's a villain missing. There are pieces of this story that simply don't add up. And the one we still haven't seen, the one hiding underneath all of this noise, is the Jackal. And real quick, before we get into it, all I ask in return for the work I put into this is that you like the video and hit subscribe. That's it. Now, enjoy. The actor reportedly stepping into this role is Keith David, and if that name doesn't immediately scream supervillain to you, hold that thought, because that is the entire point, and it's going to matter a lot by the end of this video. So who is the Jackal? His real name is Miles Warren, and in the comics, he is one of the most important, and honestly, one of the most twisted names in all of Spider-Man's history. He's the man sitting at the center of the most infamous Spider-Man story ever told, a saga built almost entirely around clones. But here's the thing about Warren. His obsession was never money. It was never power in the normal sense. His obsession was Spider-Man's genetics, Peter Parker's DNA, cloning, sick experiments, copies of Spider-Man walking around with Peter's exact abilities. If you've ever heard comic fans talk about the clone saga, the storyline's so messy and so controversial that it nearly broke Spider-Man for an entire generation of readers, Miles Warren is the man who started all of it. He's the reason a clone of Peter could walk around fully believing that he was the real one. That is Miles Warren's entire world. And once you understand that, the strange shape of this movie suddenly starts to make a whole lot more sense. Because here's what I think everyone is missing. Every villain you see on screen does not have to be the active main villain of the film. Some of them are there to show Peter's past. Some of them are there to paint a picture of New York's criminal underworld. And some of them exist only to cast the shadow of a much bigger threat, the kind you're not supposed to notice until it's already too late. So this crowd of villains might not be a problem at all. It might be the trick. And honestly, that would be the smart move. Both Marvel and Sony watched exactly what happened when a Spider-Man movie tried to juggle 3 or 4 big villains at once. They got burned for it badly. So a studio that learned that lesson the hard way is not going to make the same mistake twice. Instead, they flood the screen with familiar faces, they let us argue about every single one of them, and they keep the one that actually matters hidden in plain sight. Let's talk about that opening montage for a second, because I think it's far more important than people realize. The movie can open by showing that Peter has been Spider-Man for years now. And the easiest way to do that is through old crime files, newspaper headlines, police reports, news broadcasts, security camera footage, quick flashes of past fights. The message is simple. Peter is not a rookie anymore. And this is the clever part. After No Way Home, the entire world forgot Peter Parker. But Spider-Man's history in New York was never erased. People don't remember the man behind the mask, but every crime Spider-Man stopped, every threat he faced, every villain he put away, all of that is still on record somewhere. So in that montage, you could see a name like Vulture, a man who once walked straight into Peter's personal life, showing up in a news archive. You could see Mysterio, the man who destroyed Peter's identity, still sitting in the old media coverage. All of those clips, all of those villains, they are not the point. They are the smokescreen. Because for every old enemy and every street-level thug this movie throws at you, only one man is actually pulling the strings, and he never throws a single punch. Miles Warren, the Jackal. Because Brand New Day was never about Peter's new life, it is about Peter's body. After everything he has survived, Peter is changing. His cells, his blood, the spider DNA running through him, all of it is mutating into something new. And the trailer says it out loud. It talks about how spiders have 3 life cycles, how a spider caught between those cycles becomes vulnerable, and how the ones that make it through go through a kind of rebirth. That is not a hero's speech. That is a scientist standing over Peter, describing exactly what is happening to him. and that scientist is the Jackal. And understand who the Jackal really is. Miles Warren is not a thief, and he is not a brute. He is the man behind the most infamous story in Spider-Man's history, a man so obsessed with Peter Parker's biology that he built his entire life around copying it. He does not want to beat Spider-Man. He wants to own the formula that makes Spider-Man possible, to recreate it again and again until he has rewritten what Spider-Man even is. That obsession is his whole identity, and Brand New Day hands him the perfect moment to act on it. Now here is how you know it is the Jackal. With zero doubt, start with that voice. The voice narrating the trailer is Keith David.
Spiders have 3 life cycles. When between cycles, it can leave the spider vulnerable to threats. And for those spiders who make it through, it amounts to a kind of rebirth.
People recognized it the second they heard it, and when he was asked directly if it was him, he did not deny it. He answered with one knowing look and let the internet do the rest. And that choice tells you everything. Keith David does not play henchman. That deep, calm, superior voice belongs to the smartest man in the room, the one who already knows how the whole thing ends. You do not waste a voice like that on a side character who hands Peter a clue and disappears. You give it to your mastermind. And the fact that this exact voice is the one explaining Peter's mutation is the movie pointing straight at its villain. And think about the move itself. The boldest thing a studio can do is hide its biggest villain inside the one voice you are trained to trust, the narrator. You are not supposed to suspect the narrator. The narrator is the calm, neutral voice guiding you through the story. So when that voice turns out to understand Peter's transformation better than anyone alive, that is not an accident. That is the entire trick. They hid the Jackal in plain sight, in the last place anyone would ever look. Then look at who surrounds Spider-Man in this film. Punisher, Tarantula, Scorpion. These are not random pieces. In the comics, every single one of them belongs to the Jackal. The Punisher was created as the hired gun the Jackal sent to kill Spider-Man. Tarantula and Scorpion were both recruited by the Jackal to hunt him down. This movie is rebuilding the Jackal's exact hunting party, name for name, decades later. That is not a coincidence. That is the Jackal assembling his crew right in front of you while everyone wastes time arguing about which one is the main villain. And it runs deeper than that. Hulk is in this movie, which means Bruce Banner is in this movie, and Banner is a scientist. In the comics, Miles Warren lives in that same world, a geneticist, in the same university, the same labs, the same circles as the people studying Peter. So while Banner works to understand what is happening to Peter, Warren is standing right beside him, with full access to Peter's scans, his reports, and his blood. The man Peter trusts to save him is the man stealing the one thing that makes Spider-Man impossible to replace. And Keith David has lived in these stories before. He has voiced Spider-Man characters. Every single road leads back to the same person. And this is why the timing is perfect. Peter has nothing left. The world forgot him, his friends do not know him, and he has buried himself so deep inside the mask that no one is watching out for Peter Parker anymore. That makes him the perfect specimen. Alone, exposed, and desperate for someone who finally understands what is happening to his body. Warren is exactly that someone. The same isolation that makes Brand New Day so sad is the isolation that delivers Peter straight into the Jackal's hands. So here's what Brand New Day is really doing. It points your eyes at the noise outside. Street crime, old enemies, news footage, the endless chaos of New York. But the real threat is not on the street. It is in a lab, in a white coat. Warren does not punch Peter. He helps him. He studies him. He earns his trust completely. And by the end of this movie, he walks away with Peter's DNA in his hands, and Peter never even realizes what he has lost. Because Spider-Man's power was never just the strength and the speed. It is a genetic secret, and a genetic secret can be copied. It can be grown. It can be turned into an army, a weapon that wears Peter's exact face and Peter's exact powers. That is the threat the Jackal carries, and unlike every other villain in this film, it does not end when Peter wins the fight. It multiplies. And this is far bigger than one movie. This is a trilogy built from the ground up. In the first film, Warren is the trusted scientist, and he ends it holding Peter's blood. In the second, the experiments begin, and the cloning spirals out of his control. In the third, it explodes. Clones, fake Spider-Man, Ben Reilly, Kaine, the Clone Saga, finally brought to the big screen, and the question stops being who is Spider-Man and turns into which one is the real Spider-Man. So when a second Spider-Man walks out of Warren's lab, it will not feel like a gimmick. It will feel like the most personal betrayal in the entire franchise. So that is the truth behind Brand New Day. The villains throwing punches are a distraction, and Peter beats them in his sleep. But the man in the lab, the one studying his blood, stealing his future, and quietly building copies of him, that man changes everything. That man is Miles Warren, the Jackal. And the voice in that trailer already told you exactly who he is. If you enjoyed this breakdown, drop a like, hit subscribe, leave a comment with your own theory, and give this video a hype score out of 10. I'll see you in the next one.